The diplomatic hall of the Valkyrian Empire stretched endlessly, its crystalline walls refracting light into patterns that would drive most species mad. Riza stood perfectly still, hands clasped behind his back, eyes forward. He'd been trained for this, trained to be an exhibit, a specimen, a curiosity for the galaxy's most powerful civilization. Humans were rare in this sector. Novelties, pets, some said. The Empress Velmora towered above the assembled crowd, her forearms draped in silks that seemed woven from starlight itself. Her daughter, Princess Orla, sat beside her on a smaller throne, her violet eyes scanning the various offerings that had been brought before the royal court. Merchants from a dozen worlds had presented exotic creatures, technological marvels, and cultural treasures. Then Orla's gaze fell on Riza. She leaned forward, her bioluminescent skin patterns shifting from passive blue to curious amber. "Mother," she said, her voice carrying across the hall despite its softness. "I want this one." A ripple of confusion passed through the court. The Empress turned her massive head toward the human. "The mammal? Daughter, we discussed this. They're fragile, short-lived. What could you possibly—" "That one," Orla insisted, pointing directly at Riza with one elegant finger. Riza felt every eye in the room shift to him. He'd expected to be purchased by some collector, maybe end up in a menagerie or as a translator. Being chosen by the Imperial Princess was not part of any scenario his handlers had prepared him for. The merchant who'd acquired Riza, a greasy Felthan trader, practically fell over himself, bowing. "Your Highness, an excellent choice. This specimen is highly intelligent, can speak 17 languages, and has remarkable adaptability." "Be quiet," Orla said, standing. She descended from the dais with fluid grace, approaching Riza directly. She was tall, nearly 7 feet, but Riza held his ground. When she was close enough, she circled him slowly, studying. "You're not afraid," she observed. "Would fear change your decision, Your Highness?" Riza asked in perfect Valkyrian. Orla's skin flickered with surprise, a flash of green through the amber. "You speak the royal tongue?" "I speak 23 languages, actually." The merchant undercounted. A sound escaped Orla that might have been laughter. She turned to her mother. "See? This is why I want him." The Empress Velmora sighed, a sound like wind through deep caves. "Very well. But he is your responsibility." 3 months later, Riza found himself in a position he'd never imagined. Tutor, companion, and inadvertent strategist to an alien princess who was far more than she appeared. "Explain it again," Orla said, leaning over the holographic display of human military history. "How did your people win the Battle of Saul's Gate with only 3 ships against our 20? Riza pulled up the tactical breakdown. "We didn't win. We survived long enough to make you reconsider the cost of taking our system. That's not what the records say. They say humans are insane." "Maybe we are," Riza admitted. "Your people calculate acceptable losses. We calculate unacceptable victories. There's a difference." Orla's patterns shifted to contemplative purple. Over the weeks, Riza had learned to read her moods by her skin alone. "My mother is planning to expand into the Terran sectors. She thinks humans will submit or be eliminated within a cycle." Riza met her eyes. "Is that why you chose me?" "To understand your enemy? I chose you because you didn't look at me like I was just a princess," Orla said quietly. "Everyone in that hall saw a title, a position, a means to power." "You saw what?" "What did you see, Riza?" He considered his answer carefully. "I saw someone who was as much a prisoner as I was." The room fell silent except for the gentle hum of the palace systems. "You're right," Orla finally said. "My mother has chosen my future. My mate, my role, my purpose. All decided." She looked at him. "How do humans deal with this? Being trapped? We adapt, we wait. And when the moment comes..." Riza pulled up a new file on the display. Human philosophy, literature, resistance movements. "We remember that no cage is permanent, not even one made of starlight and duty." 6 months after Orla had pointed at Riza in that diplomatic hall, the Valkyrian Empire stood at a crossroads. The Empress had ordered the invasion of human space. But Princess Orla, advised by a human who'd taught her more than language and tactics, had done something unprecedented. She'd spoken before the Imperial Council, argued against the war, presented data showing that humans, despite their short lives and soft bodies, possessed something the Valkyrians had lost in their millennia of dominance. the ability to make the unacceptable choice, to fight beyond reason, to turn certain defeat into costly victory. The council had listened. Not because Orla was a princess, but because she'd learned to argue like a human, with passion backed by logic, emotion reinforced by evidence. The invasion was postponed. Then reconsidered, then quietly, abandoned. Orla found Riza in the garden studying earth plants he'd convinced the palace to grow. "You're free to go," she said. The council approved an exchange. "You and the other human captives can return home." Riza stood, brushing dirt from his hands. "And you?" "I convinced them to make me ambassador to human space." Orla's patterns were a brilliant gold, triumph and joy. "I'll need a cultural advisor. Someone who understands both sides." "Is that an order, Your Highness?" "It's a request, Riza. From someone who learned from the best that being chosen is different from choosing." Riza smiled, something that still fascinated Orla. "The way humans showed emotion with facial muscles. Then I choose to accept." As they walked through the garden together, discussing the future of two species who'd learned to see each other not as prizes or curiosities, but as equals, the stars above continued their eternal rotation. And somewhere in that vast galaxy the word began to spread. Humanity had won without firing a shot by teaching their captors to think like humans. That, perhaps, was the most terrifying victory of all. Gender.